In this topic, we discuss how do you create your configuration model. Before you create your configuration model, it's recommended that you use pen and paper or a graphics program to visualize what you want your model to look like. This will make the setup much easier. This figure illustrates what a CTO model might look like. It includes elements like the item components, and options. You then set up your configuration model in the Product Information Management work area. You create classes and configure options when you create an item in the Product Information Management work area. When you create the item, you can specify the number of items you want to add to the same item class. To create a class, you specify the following options in the item organization under the manufacturing area. The structure item type is set to an option class. The symbol to order value is set to yes. The build and work in progress attribute is set to yes. And the materials option is set to phantom. You use the option class to group options, but you don't actually ship the class. You do ship the option. So you set some values differently for the option class than you do for the option. In addition, you set the shippable option on the sales and order management area to no. You add options to your option class after you create your structure on the Structure tab. As a note, you can see detailed instructions for creating option classes and adding options in the Implementing Order Management Guide, which is available on the Oracle Help Center website. This illustration shows the option for a model. When this item was created, you selected the model template. When you create a model for a symbol to order and want to make the configured items, you must set the build and whip attribute for the ATO model to yes. You must now add the classes you created as well as associate your model with an inventory organization. You create the ATO model in Oracle Product Model using the Product Information Management link on the Navigator. Choose the Manage Items task and create the model item. You can refer to the product model documentation on creating items with structures to create the model item. The callouts highlight some of the differences you will see in the item structure of your configured item versus your model. The structure item type of the configured item will be standard and not model. This screenshot shows the Edit Item Structure page with a completed model and all of its items. You can see that some items were optional, while others are mandatory options. After you create the item class and base item objects, you must add them to the model item structure. This is where you'll specify mandatory components and option classes, as well as the minimum and maximum number of choices allowed for an option class. You can then import the model structure into Configurator to set up rules for the configuration. Refer to the product model and configurator documentation for more details on these setup requirements. To verify your setup, create a sales order using the item you set up and make sure the configurator and add buttons displays. Verify that the hierarchy on the configure page reflects the hierarchy you set up in the Product Information Management. Also verify that you can choose one and only one configure option for each class. Our next topic will describe when the configured item is created. So let's begin. This topic discusses when is the configured item created. So when is the configured item created? The new configured item is created by supply chain orchestration at runtime from the sales order selections, including transactional item attributes, prior to order fulfillment processing. The item is created in all organizations in which the ATO model exists. The creation service also asynchronously copies entities from the ATO model to the configured item to enable downstream processes and logs errors if there are any failures. These entities include subinventories and locators, item transaction defaults, inventory consumption rules, and units of measure, both intraclass and interclass. If the configured item itself cannot be created, then the order is rejected. After you correct the cause of the error, order management must resubmit the order and resubmit the configuration matching request. If the item is created, however, and the rest of the copying is not completed, then the order is not rejected, but an exception is logged in supply chain orchestration. Regarding item catalogs, you can specify the item catalogs that the configure order process assigns to a configured item at runtime when the user configures the item. To use more catalogs, you can add them to a supply orchestration lookup. An item catalog is used to categorize each configured item into a meaningful group to help manage the item and to summarize data when you create a report. You can add an item catalog to a supply orchestration lookup, then rely on the lookup for inclusion of the catalog in the copy action. Our next topic will segue into discussing why is the configured item creation process efficient. Let's continue. This topic describes how is the configured item creation process efficient. This diagram depicts an order for an ATO model, which is a stove, and the match tables that are searched to locate the existing configuration. Note that in this example, a match was not found for this figure. So the question is, how do you add efficiency to the configured item creation process? When you submit an order containing a configured item, the application uses configuration matching to determine whether the configuration already exists. If a match is found, then the configured item ID is returned to the order. If no match exists, then the configured item creation process is initiated, which creates a new item in the item master and stores selected options data in the supply chain orchestration match tables. This process minimizes the proliferation of configuration data by storing the configurations and reusing them when an identical configuration is ordered in the future. Our next topic will discuss how configured item structure data is stored. So let's begin. This topic discusses how is configured item structure data stored. This diagram depicts dynamic structure generation for configured items. So how do we store configured item structure data? Configured item bill of materials are not stored in the item structures tables, but instead are constructed upon request using the configured item match data and the base model structure. The supply chain orchestration service provides structure for use by downstream processes, such as work orders, purchase orders, transfer orders, and shipping documents. There are a few views that are available. The sales view. Consuming projects use this view to retrieve the model and options that are selected in the sales order. The complete instance view. Consuming products use this view to retrieve the model and options that are selected in the sales order and also mandatory components and substitute items. And the transactional item attribute view. Consuming products use this view to transactional item attributes to either the sales view or complete instance components. As a note, you can search for and view the configured item structure in the supply chain orchestration application. User choices are also visible on the sales order. This diagram depicts a stove model and the model itself and most of its components are in blue boxes, which means that they are match table data. Only the base stove unit and the electric oven substitutes are in red boxes, which means they are retrieved from the model structure data. All unique configurations use common setup data at the model level, such as sourcing rules and pricing. The customer choices from configuring the model that are represented on the sales order are saved to the match tables. When the consuming product requests the complete instance view, the mandatory components and additional item data are generated to respond to the request. Allowed substitutions that are also set up in the model are also supported in this view. Consuming product the ability to view the entire structure of a configuration without having to go back to the source document or model. When you log into the supply chain orchestration application, one of the three exception details. After you identify the root cause of the issue and fix it, you can resubmit the configured item to finish the data processing. Alternatively, you can ignore the exception if you completed. The following fields display details of each exception. Base model and base model description. This is the model item that is used for configuration on the order. The configured item description. This is the configured item that results in the generation error. This is the organization that is associated with the configured item that contains the generation error.